今日咧有Christine Elliot， 我哋安省省議員MPP 就係同我哋啲媒介咧有個詢問，如果你有啲咩問題咧，咁Christine Elliot 咧佢係一個佢背景咧係一個律師嚟嘅，同埋咧就係佢喺2006年咧佢競選咧就係我哋安省保守黨嘅省議員，咁同埋咧就佢係喺呢段時間咧佢都做過唔同嘅職位，係我哋上一次咧係我哋嘅 Deputy Leader， 同埋咧就仲有佢而家咧係喺我哋嚟緊出年咧係5月咧就係安省 Ontario PC Party 咧就做一個係campaign 嗰個黨議員嘅，咁我就想請我哋個 MPP Christine Elliot 佢而家嚟同我哋講解嗰個詢問。
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank you very much for joining us today to speak about, as I'm speaking about why I'm running to become PC Leader of Ontario and Premier after 2018. As you know, we had a very difficult election loss in June, and I guess as difficult as it was, I see it as a new opportunity. It's a new opportunity for us to build our party again from the ground up, to fix some of the problems of the past and be able to fight and win the next election. So we heard from a lot of our members in the last election they want to be listened to. We need to develop a new process for developing policy. We had some policies that were very difficult for us in the last election, to say the least. But I think we need to go beyond that, and we need to build a new coalition. We, right now, as probably many of you know, have fewer than 10,000 members in our party across the entire province of Ontario. We need to build that up. Under Premier Harris, we have well over 100,000 people, and I firmly believe that we can achieve that again and then some. But what we need to do is to recreate the big blue machine of the past. I like to call it the big blue tent. And by building the big blue tent, we want to welcome everyone in who shares our progressive conservative values. And we need to reach out to people who haven't traditionally been progressive conservative supporters. That would include women. We have a huge gender gap. We have a lot of women that are voting for us as progressive conservatives. We have to reach out to more young people. There's a lot of young people that don't think that we're relevant to their issues. We need to talk to them, engage them, have them be part of the decision-making process and join us. But we also need to reach out to diverse communities. We need to reach out to new Canadians who might not have heard our progressive conservative message before, because I truly believe that many Canadians share our values of working hard, taking care of yourselves and your families, being involved in your communities, and taking care of people who are vulnerable, who have problems taking care of themselves, young children with autism, frail elderly seniors who can't find home care or long-term care, people with developmental disabilities who can and want to work but don't have the opportunity to do so. Those are the issues that I think we all share as Canadians and Ontarians. We want to make sure that everyone feels welcome and wants to join our group. So there's many people out there I think are progressive conservatives, they just haven't realized it yet, and then we want to have them join, become members of the party, and of course have the opportunity to vote for our new leader next May. I think that when we build that big blue tent, we have to have a message though that resonates with people. We have to talk about what our values are. As I said before, we need to make sure that we can take care of vulnerable people, but our bedrock strength is fiscal conservatism. We're not liberals. We don't spend money that we don't have. We live with our means, just like all of you do with your own family budgets. But we also need to make sure that we spend money on the basics. Before we spend money on all the things that would be nice to have, we need to make sure that we get the basics covered. We as progressive conservatives have priorities. We need to make sure that the basics are done before we move on to anything else. And when we talk about that, we need to also talk about why that fiscal message is so important. It's important so that we can be then socially compassionate, so that we can provide all those services that I've spoken about to children with autism, to seniors, developmental challenges, anyone else who needs our help. And I think that when we do go out with that message, it will resonate with people, and that's what's going to allow us to win the next election. But in the end, it does come down to leadership. There are 5 of us who are running for PC leadership. And the reason why I'm running is because I believe that I have the combination of government experience, business experience, and life experience in order to be able to bring that leadership to the table. I've been elected for 8 years. I was first elected in a by-election in 2006. I've had business experience outside of government, and I think that's really important. I was a practicing lawyer for over 20 years before I got involved in politics. I'm also currently the chair of the audit committee for a private trust company, so I have financial experience as well. And I think that's really important when we look at the deep financial crisis we're in Ontario right now. We have a debt that's about $300 billion. We have a deficit that's growing, not shrinking. It's gone from $12 billion most recently to now $12.5 billion. So not only are the Liberals not decreasing it, they're actually increasing it. This has to stop. We need to get our fiscal house in order, and I believe that I have the business experience to do that. And finally, I have a lot of life experience. I have 3 sons, as you may know, triplet sons who are 23, 23, and 23. And that's given me a lot of life experience. But also, I think, just to understand the challenges that young people are facing in finding jobs right now. We have a youth unemployment rate here in Ontario that's approaching 20% across the province. That can't be. We don't want to lose our young people to other jurisdictions. We want them to stay here to make our economy strong and to stay with their families. As a parent, I don't want my sons going to other jurisdictions. I want them to be able to stay right here in Ontario. And that's why I'm running, to make sure that we can do that we can offer those opportunities to young people, to people that want to stay here in the communities, to build Ontario's economy up, and to enrich our social fabric as well. So I think that all those combinations of skills are the reason why I'm running, and I think it's really important that people in our party select a leader that can connect with people in the province, that people can understand that you share their values, that you understand the challenges that they face on a daily basis, and that you have a vision for a better Ontario and a plan to get there. So that when difficult decisions need to be made in 2018, as unfortunately I think will be necessary given the economic path that we're on, if people believe in you and they believe you have a vision for the province, I believe they'll follow you. I believe that they won't like the tough decisions that will have to be made, but they will be there and they'll understand it's to make life better for all of us. So that's why I'm running. That's why I'm my vision for a better Ontario, and I firmly believe that with that combination we will win 2018, because ultimately that's what it's all about. It's who's the leader that's going to be able to beat Kathleen Wynne in the next election. I believe I'm that person. That's why I'm running. So thank you very much for being here. I'm happy to answer any questions. In the last 3 elections, general elections, I of course was elected in a by-election in 2006. 2007 we lost on policies that religious school funding was a problem for us. 2011 we had the foreign workers issues that Chain Games. 2014 was 100,000 job cuts. We need to make sure that we select policy that's going to resonate with people across the province. It's going to be good, solid public policy. That's why I think we really do need to build that big blue tent, both in terms of people who will vote for us across the province, but also on our campaign team, so that we will have that diversity of knowledge and experience, and we'll be able to vet policies from a variety of different perspectives. And then by the time the policies get endorsed in the election campaign, we'll know that it is going to be important to meaningful people, and people will vote for it. So that's what I want to bring to the table, is good sound judgment on policy and having everybody involved who wants to be involved in that policy.
What policies in the PC micro are specifically designed for newcomers or individuals to this province?
I think part of the problem is we didn't have that many in the last election, and I think we need to put a focus on that. And what I would look forward to is having people from a variety of backgrounds, a lot of Canadians coming on to our policy teams to talk about the things that are going to be really important. I don't want to prejudge that now, because what we heard loud and clear from our members the last time around was that we weren't consulting with them. So we need to make sure that we do that, but we also need to be inclusive and make sure that everyone is welcome who wants to be involved in that.
My question is for the Premier's recent trip to China with the Chinese church and then they signed a contract with Chinese companies to bring investment in Ontario. But in your PC party, some critics said that it's going to hurt local economy. So what's your take on that?
I think that it's really important that we reach out and form those trade agreements with China and a number of other countries, because that's what is going to help make Ontario's economy stronger. We also need to make make sure that we break down interprovincial trade barriers. I think that generally speaking, when the more trade agreements we can reach, the better. But we also need to create conditions for our own local businesses so that they can grow and thrive as well. So I don't believe they're mutually exclusive. I think we can encourage trade with China, but at the same time encouraging and creating the conditions for local businesses to grow and thrive.
So for follow-up questions, how are you going to balance trade or other countries, or bring at the same time to boost the local economy? You very like the leader of the party and run for the election in 2018. How are you going to balance it?
Well, I would certainly encourage those trade agreements with other countries. I don't think that we don't live in an island in Ontario. We need to make sure that we think globally. That's really important. But I think at the same time we have businesses here that are struggling with things like high hydro rates, with excessive red tape, with rules and regulations that are costing them more and more money to run their businesses. So we need to create a level playing field here for our local businesses to be able to grow and thrive. I think one of the biggest issues is having an energy policy that is coherent here in the province of Ontario, because I believe that we have the second highest industrial rate in North America. I think there are many businesses that are coming from other jurisdictions, looking to invest in Canada that don't even look at Ontario. They are looking at other provinces, Saskatchewan, Alberta, British Columbia. It's not enough for us to sit back and say, well, the global recession is very bad and it's going to take us a long time to come back from it. If that were true, then why are other provinces doing so much better than Ontario is? I think it calls upon us to take a look at what we're doing internally in Ontario to fix those conditions and make them attractive for businesses to both locate here and to grow as well. A lot of businesses are finding that they simply can't grow their businesses. They're faced with things like the Ontario pension plan right now. A lot of businesses have been telling me that they're going to have to lay off employees in order to be able to cope with those increased rates. That's not the way I think we should be going. We need to make sure that businesses can grow, hire more people.
And I have two questions. You stated that the issues facing the PC are structural in terms of public policies and also party efforts. So why do you say that, and how are you going to address it? And my second question is, it seems that the sexual harassment issue is still an issue in Canadian workplace, including Parliament Hill and also public institutions like CBC. So as a party leader, how are you going to address this issue?
Sure. All right, if I can address your second question first, the issue of harassment. I think unfortunately there still is a lot of sexual harassment in many workplaces, and that is one of the reasons why one of my colleagues, Lori Scott, who's a member for Albert North Lakes brought forward a private member's bill to create a select committee of the legislature to study that and to make recommendations. It isn't something that I think any of us take lightly. It's unfortunate that that's still happening, but the reality is that it is happening and we need to deal with it. Women should not be harassed in the workplace. Some men are as well, but I think a disproportionate number are women. And we need to find out why that's happening, put practices in place to make sure that that doesn't continue. But as to the structural issues in the PC party, we certainly heard a lot about that from our members in the consultations that we had following up from the election. Our party executive visited many parts of the province and spoke to our members. They're very not happy because they felt that they were disrespected by the party during the last election campaign. So we asked people to go out and donate their time and their efforts and their money. And then when time comes to making policies, we don't pay attention to what our members have to say. So we need to change that. Before we can go out to the broader electorate, we need to make sure that we listen to people in our own party and to what matters to them and what matters to Ontarians. We didn't focus on the issues that matter to people out there. People like finding jobs for young people, taking care of for elderly people, seniors issues, all of those things we didn't talk about. So we need to become relevant to both our party and to the people out there. So until we fix the problems within our own party, I don't believe we can go out there and win government. We're going to fix that first, and then we're going to go out and speak to people about why we should be government next time around, and I think they will find out that we have a compelling message.
So what sort of effect do you think Ontario PC Party would have in the next federal election, which is happening next year, and what would your role be should you become the party leader?
Well, certainly we agree with our federal counterparts on most things. Certainly in my own household, my late husband and I agreed on most things, not always everything, but most things. And I think that we have the same basic ideas in mind, that we want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to be successful, that people work hard and shouldn't be overtaxed. They should have the ability to spend their money on things that are priorities for them once we take care of the basics. So I think that we will be speaking about many of the same things during the PC Party leadership as our federal counterparts will in the next election, whenever that happens. But certainly we will do whatever we can to help and support them. We recently had a by-election in my riding in Oshawa. We have a new member who is formerly the mayor of the town of Whitby, Pat Perkins, and she and I see very much eye to eye, and I look forward to supporting her, and she's been very supportive of me. Maybe ask somebody
Yes.
to ask a question.
You know, now the Ontario Legal Party has three Canadian entities, one cabinet, so but it doesn't have one Chinese Canadian yet. So if you become a leader, what will you do to encourage Canadian community to be involved in the party and to look for more diversity?
Yes. Well, I think it is very important to have members of the Chinese Canadian community in the legislature to be able to speak about issues that are important to your community and to people generally across the province. I think it's really important that we have the composition of members in the legislature to reflect the composition of Ontario. And right now I don't think we have that balance. We don't have that balance in our party as Progressive Conservatives, and we need to work harder on that. I think that building that big blue tent, as I've spoken about, is really important, both in terms of people, members of our party, and people that we want to join our party and support us, but also for people who are prospective candidates. I think we need to work a lot harder on that than we have in the past, and we need to make sure that we support Chinese Canadian members to become elected. And that's certainly what I would do as leader.
You're talking about PC strong during the finance management, but on the other hand, it seems to be my area's funding formula for the school is still chaos up to today. So is there anything in the new funding formula, or how do you balance the finance and the real situation to make people get the basic?
Well, I think it's a question of priorities. I think that what you would have to start with is doing the same thing as the federal government did, doing a line-by-line analysis of everything in the budget and get rid of programs that are redundant. I think that's what taxpayers expect that you would do. And we've talked a lot about programs like the driving program, as an example, that had value 15, 20 years ago, but because of emission controls on vehicles now, we probably don't really need it. So it's an extra expense for taxpayers, but it's also an extra expense for government to run that program. We need to take a look at those types of programs, see if they still provide value. If they do, of course, we'll keep them. If we don't, we should get rid of them so that we can make room for the programs and services that we do need. So I think that we need to be innovative in the way that we do things. That's not going to be the only way we're going to find those efficiencies, because we're in a deep economic hole. We've got a huge debt that we've got to pay off. And the deficit is $12.5 billion right now. The Liberals have said that they're going to get rid of it by 2017-18, but there's absolutely no shred of evidence to indicate that they're going to be able to do that. The Conference Board of Canada has said that they're not going to be able to do it. The Ontario Chamber of Commerce is very worried about their ability to do it. And certainly by the actions we've taken so far, they don't show any kind of an appetite to rein in spending, which we absolutely need to do in order to be able to stay afloat as a government. So we need to take a look at all of those programs and look at innovation in other areas too. Healthcare, I think, is one area where we've heard consistently we're not getting good value for healthcare dollars. We need to look at how we can find those savings because we've got an aging population. Baby boomers are getting older. We've got this tsunami of Alzheimer's that's coming upon us. How on earth are we going to pay for that when we're barely keeping our head right now? So they're big challenges, but we need to think in an innovative way. The same old ways of doing things, to me, are not going to work. We need to be, the status quo is no longer acceptable. So we need to think outside the box and to be able to get things done.
Follow-up. If you are become the new leader, and how do you first get rid of the debt in the party?
Get rid of the debt in the party?
Yeah.
Well, that's a big question because we've got about a $7.5 million debt right now. We've got to get rid of that and then start raising money for the next election. So I think that's a challenge for the party, is to select a leader that's going to be able to do that. And I can tell you my fundraising efforts and my leadership campaign so far are going very well. So it's going to be a lot of fundraisers in the next number of years. There's going to be a lot of work, not just fundraising, but meeting with groups large and small. It's not going to be glamorous work because we're in opposition, but I'm dedicated to the people of Ontario and to the Ontario PC Party, and I'm willing to roll up the sleeves and do the hard work as necessary.
The Harper government donated millions of dollars to South Africa for the prevention of Ebola and expected mothers or expected children and mothers and so on. As a taxpayers of Ontario and as well as why do we have to help other countries first rather than Ontarians or Canadians first? Can you explain it to all the media? If you are a leader of the PC and you will become a new prime premier in Ontario, can we consult the parents or the taxpayers first before promising to donate something in some places like it has nothing to do with Canada?
Well, I think what I would say to that is that we are all connected in this world now, and so I think that we do have a responsibility as citizens of the world to help others that are in need. But of course you have to balance that with the needs of the people here in Ontario. And there are many people that are suffering, that are living in poverty, disabilities, and aren't able to get the help that they need. I had the opportunity most recently to work on a select committee on developing a developmental services strategy. There are people in Ontario that felt they had no opportunity but to, no other alternative, I should say, but to give up their adult children to government offices because they weren't able to take care of them. Young adults with autism who needed assistance, where their families are just hanging by a thread. Those are the people that I want to be able to help. Those are the people that live here. We need to make sure that we can take care of our own citizens and offer help to those families that need it. And so that's why I'm running. I think that we need to make sure that we include everybody in our society, that I don't want to leave anybody behind. And whatever challenges they face, I want them to know that the government is going to be there to help them.
Another question? You mentioned that you're going to reach out to your Canadians. But if, we all know that Chinese community and there are less people involved in politics. So how are you going to actually reach out to the Chinese Canadians to get them involved in politics? Are you going to do more roundtable meetings or town hall meetings to people and explain your strategy or your platform, or what you're going to do to reach out?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. It's going to be a lot of meetings in various parts of the province. I want to hear from everyone about what their ideas are and what the challenges are that they face, because you can't represent everyone unless you speak to everyone about what their concerns and issues are. So, as I said, it's being in opposition. It's not a glamorous job, but it's necessary work because we need to make sure that we as a party are relevant to everyone, that we can represent everyone, and that we can propose solutions that are going to be beneficial to everyone. You can't do that unless you go to where people are. I can invite people to Queen's Park, and I'm always happy to do that, but people have busy lives, they have jobs and volunteer work and children and all sorts of other challenges and calls all the time. So it's Sometimes you go to events and there aren't that many people. Sometimes there are many. But it doesn't matter. You keep doing it. It's a great thing to do, and you want to make sure that you can reach everybody that wants to be listening to you.
There are 5 candidates to run for council leadership. Why people should vote for you?
Well, as I said at the beginning, because I believe that I have a combination of business life and political experience in order to be able to do that. But I would like to concentrate on business experience for a moment, because I think that that's really important. There are some people who've been mostly involved just in political and maybe not in business. I think the business experience is really important in this leadership because of the very difficult economic hole that we're in here in Ontario, and the fact that we need somebody who has that business experience to help lead us through. So I've worked for a major bank. I worked for a major chartered bank for 4.5 years. I've been involved with a trust company. I've been involved in my law practice as an entrepreneur in business, knowing how to do payroll, having people employed, and time use. I think all of those things are important in terms of dealing with the economic situation that we're in, and that experience will stand really good for that organization.
Yes, hi. So one issue that Chinese community really concerned. So now there is the longest incident showing at some Niagara Falls hotel. But according to some investigation media reports and some NGO like Outback Research Foundation, and they claim that this expel will reveal that the bodies may have been murdered by Chinese police and also sold to the companies for the profit display. And now these bodies are here in Ontario, so that's why some Chinese community are really concerned about it. It is a disgrace for Chinese people according to the tradition, and also they might be murdered. So, as the House critic, what's your stand on this issue? Because the coroner already declined to seize these bodies and to request the Chinese community and do some investigation. So, as a House critic, and also if you are elected PC leader, what is your stand? Do you believe that the Ontario legislation should have some legislation on this to prohibit such?
And I'm sorry, where was that?
The Niagara Falls.
Okay.
Niagara Falls. Yeah, some hotel.
Okay. Well, I think obviously there's a serious concern there. I would hope that the coroner would be involved in it. I have called on the coroner on other situations to investigate suspicious deaths or situations where people have died with mental health issues, where there have been altercations. But I think we need to make sure that we can investigate in situations that are important to kids. I would have to know, I have to say I would need a little bit more information to more specifically comment on that. But I think that what has happened is that there are situations where the government can speak to cause things to happen, to have investigations done, but very often they don't seem to be very willing to do so. But beyond that, I would have to have another conversation with them more specifically.
The opposition party, people tend to think that it will be opposite to anything that the government says. But in fact, is there anything that you agree with right now?
Well, that's an interesting question, because I think that what people are looking for is mature leadership, and you don't just go out and disagree with the government just for the sake of it. There are many things that you may be able to agree with them on, and I tend to want to find that consensus. In the same way, Premier Davis, as you may know, is supportive of me, and I know that he was very successful even during the minority governments in reaching out to the opposition parties and having a good relationship with them. It doesn't mean you always have to agree with me, but I think that I always try to find common ground before I go out and look for trouble, and I think that's what people expect. People of constituencies across Ontario come out and vote for you because they want you to do your job. They want you to solve the problems that really matter to them, and whatever way you do that, whether it's going over to the other side of the other side, speaking to the government members, or speak for government to have them come and speak to me. I think it's really important to try and find that consensus if you can, if it's going to help people. Because I think that's why some people get totally turned off politics. They don't want to be involved in it because they think all we do is scream and shout at each other at Queen's Park because that's all they see in question period. I have had the opportunity of working collaboratively with the other two parties on two private members' bills that I brought forward that resulted in select committees, one on mental health and addictions and one on developmental services. And we actually were able to work across party lines and develop recommendations that have been well received by the respective communities. And that was without any disagreement. So sometimes it's better just to park your partisan differences if it can act things done for people. And that's the way I try and approach it. Sometimes it doesn't work and you have to agree with them. Sometimes quite forcefully. But I think you need to start on the premise that you can work things out and take it from there.
We have time for a couple more questions.
Ontario has a very interesting political situation right now. We have female governor lieutenant like Elizabeth Stanford and female premier. And also MPP has female leader, Andrew Howard. And now you are the front runner of PC leadership. So what's your opinion on this interesting situation?
I think it's time for an Ontario PC leader who's a woman. But that's not why I'm running. Obviously, the fact that I'm a woman is secondary. The most important thing is I believe that I have the credentials in order to be able to do the job. And as I've done in business and my community work and everything else, I intend to bring 100% of my efforts to it and to work very hard to earn the trust of the members of our party and people across Ontario. Because I really believe that people did not vote for Kathleen Liberals in the last election. People that I spoke to were very cognizant of the fact that they wasted over $1 billion of taxpayers' money on the gas plants. They're not happy about Orange or eHealth for all the wasted money that has happened with the Liberals. But the fact was, we just frightened them. We didn't speak to things that people have asked people, and we need to change that. So I think people really are looking for an alternative. And when we come back with a newly strengthened party, with a new leader, have my bias about who that should be, then I'm sure we are going to win 2018 because I think Ontario needs us to win. They need us to win to bring us back to balance, to bring us back to fiscal reality, to bring us back to the basic things that people actually care about.
So do you know any Chinese or Chinese culture? Do you know any Chinese, or how much do you know about Chinese culture?
Specifically, I know a little bit. I'm not going to say I'm hugely knowledgeable, but I enjoy going to Chinese cultural activities. I have been a fan of the Dragon Ball. I know is very popular every year. I have very good friends in the Chinese community. But I respect Chinese culture. I was actually a huge fan of the Royal Ontario Museum, and I think have a huge Chinese collection. And when I was a child, that's where I always wanted to go on my birthday, was to go to the Royal. And I do have great respect for history and tradition, and I know that the Chinese culture is rich in history, and I want to learn more about it. So that's why I look forward to my interactions with the Chinese community, both to build up our memberships, but it's learning both ways, right? I learn from you, and I can talk to you about what my vision is for the party. So I see it as being a mutually beneficial relationship, and I look forward to learning more.
Will you learn a Chinese song?
Will you teach me?
That's the beauty teach.
I have finished my question. My first question kind of for fun, sort of. So now, did you have a private conversation with Doug Ford before he made this decision? And will Doug Ford play an important role next year? Next year?
Yes, I did speak to Doug after the municipal election. As you probably know, Doug and Rob Ford have been family friends of ours for many years. My late husband, Jim, and Doug Ford Sr. were seatmates at Queen's Park from 1995 to 1997. So our friendship goes back many, many years. So I did speak with him. He told me at that point that he was deciding what he wanted to do. And so I left it at that. I knew he had many considerations regarding his family, his brother, of course, and his business. So I was very, very pleased when he decided to come out and support me. And yes, he is going to be out there on the road with me, and I told him that I would be happy to have him do whatever he would like to, given his time constraints, to come and assist me. I think as part of building that big blue tent, I think that's very important. Coordination. We say we get 330,000 votes across the city of Toronto, so I think that's a very powerful force. And I don't pick and choose about who I think should be members and who should be members. As far as I'm concerned, everyone who wants to join our PC party and to join my team is more than welcome to join. I welcome all parties.
This is the last question.
Are you sure this time?
It looks like people can pass whatever legislation they want, right? So, but I think as an audience, we want to hear different voices.
Yes.
So, but I not hear from PC, not every time, most time, I didn't hear PC.
Well, there's no question right now with the majority government, it's more difficult because we can't work with the NDP on issues that we both feel very strongly about because we're going to be outvoted. But that doesn't mean to say we don't raise strong opposition to things that we really disagree with. That is our job as official opposition, and should it become leader and the leader of the official opposition, that will be my duty to raise issues that are concerned to people across the province of Ontario, and I don't shy away from doing that. I'm ready to take on the Premier. If I disagree with her, I'll say so in no uncertain terms. But we look forward to working together to raise issues that are of importance to the community. I have been a strong advocate for traditional Chinese medicine, as you probably know, and I have worked with the community over several years now. So those are things that I know there are issues with the provincial government on that point, and I will continue to raise those issues as necessary.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Feel free to stay around if you'd like. We do have some food coming out.
Thank you very much for joining us today. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with all of you. Thank you. Exciting time.